Hello, everyone. Now, at the moment, we are in the season coming up to local elections. And as you know, they were due to happen in 32 local area authorities, mostly counties, but the Labour government has cancelled elections in 9 local areas. And they laid a statutory instrument on the 11th of February to do so. And that is the local authorities' changes to years of ordinary elections, England Order 2025. Essentially, it says there the ordinary elections of councillors of the following local authorities that would, but for this order, have taken place on the ordinary day of election of councillors in 2025 are instead to take place on the ordinary day of elections of councillors in 2026. So that's East Sussex, West Sussex, Surrey, Hampshire, the Isle of Wight, Essex, Thurrock, Suffolk, and Norfolk. Those places have had their elections cancelled, or as they say, postponed. But they've been postponed for 1 year, they can be postponed for another year, and so on, as they push through their devolution plans, which is to make distant unitary authorities and to put a Sadiq Khan type figure, a regional mayor, over the top of them in every county that will push through their planning and infrastructure agenda. And it basically undermines democracy completely in local government. Well, that's their plan. They've laid this statutory instrument, this order to cancel the elections. But that's not the end of the story, because, as I said in my last video on this topic, there is a 40-day period in which MPs in the House of Commons or Lords in the House of Lords can object to this statutory instrument with something called a prayer, which is a type of early day motion to object to a statutory instrument. Now, what we found out since then, which I wasn't aware of when I made the last video on this topic, is that there already have been 3 prayers against this statutory instrument. And the first one was actually laid on the, sorry, that's the wrong screen. There we go. On the 12th of February. So the day after Angela Rayner made the order there to cancel the elections, on the day after this, there was a prayer against it in the House of Commons. And actually, now I'm no fan of the fake Conservatives, but this was actually laid by 22 fake Conservatives, Camille Badenoch actually being the #1 signatory. Okay, so not a big fan, but fair play to her on this particular issue. And the motion says, it's the standard text for a motion, that a humble address be presented to His Majesty, praying that the local authorities changes to years of ordinary elections, England Order 2025, dated the 10th of February 2025, a copy of which was laid before this House on the 11th of February 2025, be annulled. So the order there was made, the objection to the statutory instrument cancelling the elections was made in the House of Commons by 22 Tory MPs. Now, I haven't heard anything about what's happened to that, but they just simply don't have the numbers in the House of Commons. So it probably just disappeared into the ether. From my understanding, and I may be wrong on this, the Speaker has to decide whether to allow a debate or a vote on this, and probably just decided not to let it go ahead. If I'm wrong, please let me know. But it hasn't progressed in the House of Commons in any way that will overturn the cancellation of the elections. Of course, Labour has a huge majority at the moment in the House of Commons, with over 400 MPs. So however many Tories voted against the cancellation of elections, and even if you've got all the Lib Dems and Greens and Reform to vote with you, Labour would be able to vote that prayer, that early day motion down. So that didn't go anywhere, and it doesn't look like it's going to be successful in the Commons. But in the Lords, that's a different story. And there have been 2 prayers against the statutory instrument to cancel the elections in the Lords. The first one here, and again, here we go, it's a Green Lord, Lady, Baroness Jones of Malscombe, which is near Brighton, I understand. So she moved a humble address to be presented to His Majesty, objecting against the order there. It was all named, the same wording as in the House of Commons, just with a little bit of extra on explanation, as it damages the democratic accountability of local authorities to local residents and has not been subject to full and proper consultation, which is absolutely true. So, yeah, I'm no fan of the Green Party at all. I completely oppose almost all of their policies. But on this issue, fair enough, Baroness Jones. I actually shared not shared an office with her, but actually it's an interesting story. When I was in the London Assembly for 2016 to 2021, the office I had was, prior to me taking that office, that was Jenny Jones's office in the London Assembly. So I had the same office as she used to have in the London Assembly there. It's quite interesting. Apparently it was bugged by MI5. So, when I was there, it was probably bugged as well. I mean, who knows? Anyway, but that's just by the by. But on this issue, fair play to her. She's done the right thing. She's concerned about democracy, okay? Probably for completely different reasons, in terms of policies that I am, but we would agree on this, that the elections should not be cancelled for nearly 6 million people in the areas, the 9 areas which they're cancelling them. So she's objected to this. Also, another Lord, member of the House of Lords, Baroness Pinnock, who is a Liberal Democrat. Again, I have no agreement with the Liberal Democrats at all on policy, but on this particular issue, we have a Liberal Democrat, Baroness Pinnock, moving a humble address to be presented to His Majesty, praying against the order there which cancels the elections, and that was laid on the 5th of March, which was the day after the statutory instrument became law and went into force of law. So, fair play on this particular issue. So that's very interesting that in the Lords, you have a Green and a Lib Dem both objecting to the cancellation of elections. Now, what the Heritage Party has found out here, and our General Secretary, Madeline, has been doing some great work in writing to MPs, Lords, councillors, all kinds of people who are in positions of power who are going to be affected by this, is that there is going to be a debate on this in the House of Lords on the 24th of March. And that may leave the statutory order that cancels elections null and void. This is an article from an obscure paper called the Local Government Chronicle. It's not been reported on anywhere in the mainstream media that I can see. Peers bid to block elections postponement. The government has been warned to expect fireworks when legislation to postpone some local elections goes to the Lords later this month. Baroness Jones, a Green Party life peer, told the District Council's network this morning, this was the 14th of March, this article was written, that she was planning to move a fatal motion when secondary legislation to postpone elections in 9 councils goes before the Lords on the 24th of March. So the government seeking to postpone elections in those areas which we've mentioned before, allowing for work on what they call local government reorganization and devolution to get underway. Well, I mean, it's not just a simple reorganization, it's a complete trashing of democracy at local level. So that's the government, will use a statutory instrument. Well, that's already been laid. We know what it is, which means the Lords can only approve or reject it, but not amend it. Baroness Jones said the Lib Dems had also moved a fatal motion to block the postponement of the elections. This is all very boring, opaque stuff, but basically we can stop a statutory instrument by voting for a fatal motion, and so I look forward to some real fireworks. Well, that is very interesting. So if this goes to a vote in the House of Lords, she can move a motion. She's entitled to do that. It's coming up for debate. If the Lords vote to declare this statutory instrument that cancels the elections to be null and void, then it does not stand. It is immediately expunged from law, and there is no postponement or cancellation of elections. And that means the elections will go ahead on the 1st of May as scheduled in East Sussex, West Sussex, Surrey, Hampshire, the Isle of Wight, Essex, Thurrock, Suffolk, and Norfolk, just as in all the other 23 areas where they haven't been cancelled or, as they say, postponed. So this is very interesting. Up to now, there's been no commentary at all in the mainstream media that there's anything's going to happen apart from these elections in 9 areas will be cancelled. It's a done deal. You know, there's no reporting of this, but it's not a done deal, because if this vote, this is so exciting, this vote overturns the government's plans to cancel the elections, their whole devolution agenda is going to be scuppered, because they are targeting these areas because there's the biggest resistance from challenger parties in these areas. I mean, okay, as well as, you know, Kent and Devon and other places. And there's a lot of resistance actually up in, you know, County Durham and, you know, Lancashire, well, everywhere in the counties really. But these areas, they really, in the south and the east, they really want to destroy the existing local government structure they've got and put in these regional mayors, so every county has this dreadful Sadiq Khan type figure who will be there. It won't be Sadiq Khan himself, obviously, but you'll have something like the Mayor of London in Sussex and Surrey and Essex, etc., who will do the government's bidding. If this gets defeated in the Lords next Monday, the 24th of March, that's it. Their plan is going to be completely derailed for a long time. And then people will have the opportunity to vote in councillors from challenger parties like the Heritage Party, who will not comply with this devolution agenda, which is there to push through the climate alarmism, more rapid immigration, more wind turbines, more solar panels, more restrictions on cars traveling freely around your own towns and cities and neighborhoods, which you've always been allowed to do, with more 15-minute cities and restrictions and gantries and fines and all this kind of thing that they want to do. So it's going to be very interesting to see what happens in the Lords. It's harder to connect with Lords than with MPs, because everyone has a designated MP, of course. You vote for your MPs. The Lords are more opaque. But it's interesting, the Greens are against this, the cancellations. The Lib Dems are against this. There's also signs that the fake Conservatives are against it. They laid the motion in the Commons. Labour does not have a majority in the Lords like they do in the House of Commons. So if all of the Lib Dems and Greens and Tories and crossbenchers get together and decide they're going to strike this election cancellation down, that's it. We will have the elections as we should do, and the plan to destroy democracy will be scuppered and hopefully finished. So let's see what happens on the 24th of March. Thanks for listening, everyone. Let's continue to fight to get our elections restored. God bless you all.